The next step was, let's create a roadmap. I'm a very big believer in terms of if you start with the customer, you will always get your roadmap properly. That's the most important thing. You have to have a customer-centric roadmap. So we mapped the journey of an immigrant. How many of you have watched the show 48 Hours? So the 48 hours are the most critical in terms of being able to find somebody who's actually been missing. And that's how we looked at it. We actually were able to map the entire journey of an immigrant before they got on that plane, as well as the minute they landed after that plane. And the reason it's 48 hours, because research shows that they open their bank account within 2 business days of landing in this country. So all you have is 2 days. And the number one referral source, where there's 2 sources, is if they have family or friend, they call them up and they ask them, where do you do your banking? And that's how they choose their bank. The other one, if they don't have any family or friend, is the minute they walk out of the hotel room or wherever it is they're staying, it's the most convenient branch, they'll just go in and deposit that check. And for most of you who may not know, well, I guess most of you in this room are not from here. When you come here, you have to have a certain amount of cash. And so you don't want to be walking around with a big checkbook in your pocket, so you want to find a safe place for it. So that's exactly what we did, is we mapped it out in terms of what was their thinking process before, when they made that decision to immigrate, who did they talk to, did they go to an agent, how did they get their information, when they got on that plane, what did they do, and what did they do when they actually landed in this country. And more importantly, after they opened their bank account, what was the next thing they did? If they have kids, did they go do some research on schools, finding a house, finding a car? And so it was very important for us to map out that whole process. As I had mentioned, it has to be all customer-centric. The other thing, too, is domestic versus international strategy. So one thing that we really focused on is Scotiabank's most competitive advantage is our international footprint. And the fact that a lot of research is done before a lot of people get on that plane is a huge competitive advantage because we have a huge network outside of Canada. And so based on the source countries, the biggest source countries were India and China, and we had been there. So we did a lot of research in terms of trying to figure out what are the centers of influence in the various areas, in the various places that people can actually go to get that kind of information that can help them when they land in the country. And so we thought that was something that cannot be easily replicated by the competition in terms of our footprint across the world. And so that's the approach we took, was a 2-pronged approach. And then from there, we designed the Start Right program. So in terms of designing the program, the key things that we looked at based on the customer was looking at the various products. So when a customer walks into a branch, and I know even as a consumer myself, and they tell you, well, do you want to open a deposit account or you want to open a checking account? And then they give you a laundry list of options. There's like 10 savings accounts and 10 checking accounts. So coming up with a very simplified product offering was critical. The other thing, too, was in terms of policies. How many of you heard, well, you have no credit history? Well, what the hell does that mean? I've never had a credit card until I came to this country. Or I've never had a mortgage until I've come to this country. So here's an opportunity that we can educate them on what credit history is, why it's important, but more importantly, giving them that very first credit card. Because based on research, the loyalty factor amongst these newcomers to Canada is huge. That first helping hand is critical. And in terms of once you get their bank account, the likelihood for them to switch is very, very low unless something happens in terms of our customer service.